So let's talk about the senses. This comes from chapter 4 in the Bernd Schmidt book, Experiential Marketing. Now, experiential benefits are those that stimulate the mind and body, and it's that interface between the individual and the staged event. Well, the senses are the way that stimulation, and interface happens. So they're the foundation of all experiential marketing. The five senses include sight, smell, touch, sound, and taste. So think about this in that traditional information processing model where the term that buyer behavior classes tend to use is sensory registers. That is the way the body absorbs information. You hear it, you see it, you feel it, you taste it, and you smell it. Each of these are important, but in terms of experiential marketing, they are in fact multiplicative or synergistic. So sight, of course, what you see. Sight is the single most important sense. You use it all the time. It's the one sense that is on all the time, and you rely on it absolutely all the time. Some simple things to think about are things like colors and lighting and lettering and logos, along with all other visuals. Sights, is all about what does the experience look like. The architecture, the materials, the dress, the personal grooming, the cleanliness. Think about all the other sorts of things. We're in a situation now where when a person goes back into a retail situation, I was listening to someone on CNBC this morning talk about, well, it's, all the experience, in-store experience is over. It's all just about getting people in the buildings and keeping them safe. Well, that's not true, obviously, because now the part of the experience is going to be creating a safe experience, which includes making it look safe. And of course, this is all about size and scale, and it has to sort of look right. But also remember that sight is heuristically driven, and as a result, it's relatively easy to trick your eyes into thinking that they saw something that they didn't actually see. And therefore, there's all kinds of ways that people might go in and use that heuristic sight as a way to create an experience that is more of an illusion than a reality. Scent, what you smell. Smell is one of those undervalued and appreciated senses. It's one of the fastest ways to get you to remember something from your past. Two quick examples. One, I grew up in a small town where the post office always smelled like cigars. And the reason it smelled like cigars was back in those days, the postmaster at that particular location smoked cigars, and they smoked cigars indoors all day long. And so every time you would walk into that post office, it smelled like old cigars. And not very long ago, I was back in my hometown and I stopped in the post office, and it really doesn't quite smell like old cigars anymore. And I was a little bit disappointed because that's one of my memories of that particular post office. Another example is when you come home and you walk in the door and your mom or dad or caregiver is providing is making a meal, and of course the meal brings you back to remembering how that meal is going to taste and how that meal is going to be appreciated by you. Of course, that's the notion. Does it smell the way it's supposed to? Sometimes the absence of smell is critical as a specific scent. And I think that will be true with things like cleanliness and safety. Now, when you go to the doctor's office, it should smell a little bit like alcohol so to make sure that the rooms smell clean. But think about things like bakeries or a bar or an athletic club or a gym. And of course, remember that our example is the Cosmopolitan Hotel and Casino, which uses aroma marketing as part of their marketing for their whole property. It's been said that that some people can identify as many as 10,000 different smells, and some of the perfume businesses say that they can distinguish between 5,000 different scents. And of course, this goes along with taste. Sound. What is it supposed to sound like? Is music or some other background important in framing the experience? Why do TV shows add laugh tracks to sitcoms? When you watch a sitcom on television, there'll be a laugh track with it. Some of those are live, but most of those are added after the scenes are done and in editing. Why did they do that? Well, part of it is the signal to you that it is funny, and part of it is it enhances the enjoyment. So it could be the announcer, it could be music. I have a real good example about the Golden Nugget. After Steve Wynn bought the Golden Nugget, he was in there one night and he was walking around and he was noticing that all of the coins falling out of the machines were making a lot of noise, and it made the casino sound very noisy. So he came up with this brilliant idea of putting rubber mats at the bottoms of each of the coin bins, so when the coins fell out, it wouldn't make as much noise. Of course, what happened then was people quit gambling there because they would be in there and they would never hear anybody winning any money. And so what Steve did then was not only did he take the rubber mats out, but he made sure that he had the noisiest coin bins that he could find. Imagine a sporting event with no fans. That's likely to happen in the very near future. Is it the same game if there was no one there? Will it be as exciting? Will it be as much fun to watch? Will the experience be the same? The experience will obviously not be the same, but there are things that maybe they can do to help. Sounds, pitch, sound levels, accents, all those things are part of the sound, of course, with announcers. There's an interesting finding in direct marketing, and that is that people with British accents do much better in selling products on infomercials than people with traditional American English accents. No one knows exactly why that is, but it's a finding that's very consistent. So it's not only what is said, it's how it's said, and of course that's all about the sounds. Touch. How does it feel? Does it feel right? Do the clothes fit? Does the fabric feel right? How do you fit in your car? All the sorts of things that are feel-related things. Does your car feel the way it should? Hot and cold, room temperature. Food. Now, my wife likes all of her meals hot, and she hates it when we go to a restaurant and the food comes out and it's not hot. Of course, that's part of the notion of feel. Weight. Is it the right weight? Does it feel too heavy or too light? When I worked at West Clocks, we got this brilliant idea one year to take the bases on the Big Ben alarm clocks, which is our number one flagship brand of alarm clock, and it had what was referred to back then as a pot metal base. That is, the base on the clock was made out of old pot metal, and we would mold them and put them on the clocks. And the pot metal was fairly heavy. So we found out that we could make that same base out of plastic at a fraction of the cost. So we started making plastic bases for the clocks. Of course, what that did was it made the clocks feel lighter. And when the people bought the clocks and they felt lighter, people also felt then that the relationship between weight and quality was there. And so people thought that the clocks weren't as good because they weren't as heavy. So what we eventually had to do was we went in and redesigned the plastic bases and put lead weights into those plastic bases so that we were approximately the same weight, and the quality evaluations went back up to where they were originally. It's also about texture. What does it feel like in terms of texture? Soft, itchy, rough, smooth, etc. And of course, once again, as we talked about before, does it fit? Finally, it's taste. And of course, there are 4 basic tastes: bitterness, saltiness, sourness, and sweetness. But there are other ones like umamis and fattiness and other kinds of tastes. When I used to play golf at the Legacy Golf Course, and we would stop into the restaurant and have a cup of coffee, sometimes either before or after the round, and their coffee had a metal taste to it. It had a metallic taste to it, and so I quit drinking it because of that. They never could figure out why it tasted that way, but for me, it had a particularly metallic taste, not something that I was that interested in drinking. So a little bit on the summary. Do not underestimate the importance of senses in developing and managing experiential products. If you do not think about the senses, you're not going to have a good experience. The senses have to match the experience you're trying to produce.